The New York Giants have officially fired head coach Brian Daboll, ending a run that began with so much hope but collapsed under the weight of a brutal start to the season. And while the move sends shockwaves through New York, it also creates a very real ripple effect that could impact the Miami Dolphins in a big way. Today, we're breaking down 3 major impacts this decision could have on Miami's future and why this move matters far beyond the NFC East. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and of course, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Now, let's get into the heart of this situation. First, the Giants' decision immediately adds another team to the growing list of franchises searching for a new head coach this offseason. And here's where things get interesting for Miami. The Dolphins could easily end up in the same position if their season spirals. A disappointing finish could push the organization to bring in a new general manager, and with a new GM often comes a new head coach. Even a middle-of-the-pack record, like 7-10, might not be enough to guarantee stability heading into 2025. But the Giants and Dolphins aren't alone. This offseason is shaping up to be chaotic. We've already seen the Tennessee Titans move on from Brian Callahan, and now the Giants have made their change. That's 2 vacancies already, and the list could grow to 7 or more. The Falcons may decide it's time to move on from Raheem Morris. The Browns could part ways with Kevin Stefanski. Jonathan Gannon's situation in Arizona has been strange from day one. And the Raiders? Well, nothing in Las Vegas is predictable, especially after a season where Pete Carroll's arrival hasn't produced results. So yes, we could be heading toward one of the busiest coaching cycles in recent memory. And that leads us to impact number 2. Brian Daboll himself could become a key figure for Miami. If the Dolphins choose to move on from Mike McDaniel, Daboll immediately becomes one of the most intriguing options available. He has a history with Tua Tagovailoa, and his offensive background could make him a natural fit. Even if McDaniel stays, adding an experienced offensive mind like Daboll to the staff could strengthen Miami's coaching room. Daboll's time with the Giants was a roller coaster. His first season in 2022 was unforgettable. He took a struggling team, turned them around, made the playoffs, and earned a road win over the Minnesota Vikings. That performance earned him the AP Coach of the Year award. But after that magical start, things fell apart, and New York never returned to that level. It's worth remembering that Daboll also has history in Miami. Back in 2011, he served as the Dolphins' offensive coordinator before moving on once the coaching staff was replaced. From there, he worked with the Chiefs until Andy Reid arrived and reshaped the entire organization. After leaving Kansas City, Brian Daboll returned to a place where he built his coaching foundation, the New England Patriots, winning multiple Super Bowls as part of Bill Belichick's staff. But the turning point in his career came when he headed to Alabama. That 2017 season changed everything. Daboll served as the offensive coordinator for a roster loaded with talent, including Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. It was the season Tua came off the bench in the national championship game and delivered one of the most iconic moments in college football history. From there, Daboll took over as the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, where he spent 3 seasons building one of the league's most explosive offenses. His development of Josh Allen became one of the most impressive quarterback transformations in recent memory. That success propelled him to the New York Giants head coaching job, where his first season produced a playoff win and massive expectations. But here's the part that truly matters for Miami. Almost everywhere Daboll goes, offenses improve. It happened in Alabama. It happened in Buffalo. Even in New York, Daniel Jones had a career year under Daboll, a season that completely revived his trajectory. And when Daboll previously coached in Miami, the Dolphins jumped from near the bottom of the league to a noticeably more competitive offense. His track record speaks loudly. And there's another layer Miami cannot ignore. Daboll has already coached Tua Tagovailoa. He knows Tua's personality, strengths, and the system that best elevates his game. That familiarity means that if the Dolphins ever explore replacing Mike McDaniel, or even consider adding another strong voice to the offensive staff, Daboll becomes a very natural fit. He's worked with Tua before, and the foundation of that relationship could make for a smooth transition. Now, let's look at a scenario that isn't guaranteed but absolutely worth considering. If Miami brings in a new general manager, someone like Chad Alexander or Ed Dodds, and that GM wants to select his own head coach, Daboll instantly becomes a realistic candidate. The logic is simple. Bring in a proven offensive mind with experience coaching Tua, Let him stabilize the offense for one more year and begin planning the long-term future at quarterback. Tua could be the bridge starter if the organization drafts his eventual successor, similar to how the Vikings once handled Kirk Cousins. This isn't a prediction. It's a possibility, one that makes sense, one that fits the timeline, and one that connects every part of Daboll's past to a potential future in Miami. If Brian Daboll ever landed in Miami, there's a real chance he could help unlock another level in Tua Tagovailoa's game. Their connection goes back to Alabama, and that type of familiarity isn't easy to find in the NFL. But what truly sets Daboll apart is his eye for quarterback talent. Few coaches in the league have evaluated and developed quarterbacks at the level he has. Look at his track record. He helped reshape Josh Allen into one of the league's most dangerous dual-threat quarterbacks. He guided Daniel Jones through the best season of his career in 2022. And inside the Giants organization, it was Daboll who strongly advocated for drafting Jackson Dart, believing he had the potential to become the team's future franchise quarterback. Many around the league believe that if Daboll had full control, he might have taken Dart as high as third overall. That's why many people were stunned to see the Giants fire Daboll while keeping general manager Joe Schoen. From an outside perspective, it felt completely backward. Now imagine this. Miami brings in a new general manager. That GM decides to move on from Mike McDaniel and selects his own head coach. Daboll gets the job. He works with Tua for one season. Maybe as the bridge starter if the Dolphins begin planning for the future, and then Daboll and the new GM handpick the next face of the franchise. Whether it's someone in this year's draft, like Cam Ward, Tosh Simpson, or Dante Moore if he declares, or a future quarterback in 2027, Daboll's fingerprints could be all over that choice. If there's one coach in the league I trust to identify the next elite young quarterback, it's Brian Daboll. And let's not forget, the Giants were aggressive in trying to trade up for Drake May in the 2024 draft. Daboll was a strong believer in May's upside, and the Giants wanted him badly. New England refused to move, drafted May themselves, and he's now thriving. That only further highlights Daboll's ability to spot big-time potential early. Now, as much as I admire what Daboll brings to the table, I still wouldn't fire Mike McDaniel to replace him. McDaniel's offensive creativity, leadership style, and impact on the Dolphins' culture make him one of the most unique coaches in the league. Miami has never drafted a quarterback early under McDaniel, so we've never truly seen his talent evaluation skills at work. If the Dolphins do eventually move on from Tua, I believe McDaniel deserves a chance to identify and develop the next quarterback before any drastic decisions are made. If Miami collapses and moves on from McDaniel, then yes, Daboll becomes a legitimate candidate. But if the Dolphins finish with 6 or 7 wins, would swapping McDaniel for Daboll make the team better? Probably not. Miami has consistently performed at a higher level during McDaniel's tenure, and both coaches entered their roles at the same time. The results speak for themselves. Now, if there were an opportunity to add Daboll to the staff, maybe as a senior offensive voice or a quarterback evaluator, I'd take him in an instant. Pair his quarterback expertise with McDaniel's creative mind? That's a dream scenario. Which brings us to the third major impact, and honestly, the most realistic one. Brian Daboll could return to Buffalo as the Bills' offensive coordinator. And that idea makes a lot of sense. Yes, Joe Brady is respected, and yes, he's in the head coach conversation. But he may not get hired this cycle. And even though he's solid, Daboll's track record in Buffalo speaks louder. Josh Allen played his best, most complete football under Daboll. That connection could easily lead to a reunion if the opportunity arises. Even though the Bills' offense has consistently ranked inside the top 10, anyone who watches them closely knows the frustration that builds around Joe Brady's play calling. Buffalo fans have seen the same pattern over and over again. Strange 4th-and-1 decisions, confusing play-action rollouts, and end-arounds in moments that make absolutely no sense. It happened against Miami. It happened against Atlanta. It even happened against New England. Those moments linger in the minds of fans because they stall drives and drain momentum. That's why so many Bills fans are calling for change. And honestly, it wouldn't be shocking if General Manager Brandon Beane and the ownership group listened. If Brian Daboll became available and showed interest in returning, Buffalo might not hesitate. They know exactly what he brings because they lived it. From 2018 to 2021, Daboll transformed Josh Allen from a struggling, turnover-prone project into one of the most feared quarterbacks in football. The Bills went from one of the worst offenses in the league to a playoff team in Allen's second season. That season ended in Houston in a wild, chaotic loss to Deshaun Watson, but it was the first real sign that the Bills were turning into a legitimate contender. Then came the leap. The moment Buffalo went from good to elite. Division titles, deep playoff runs, a top-5 offense year after year. And at the center of that rise was Brian Daboll. When Allen first arrived in the league, he looked overwhelmed. In 2019, during the early part of the season, he struggled so much that many wondered if he would ever develop into a reliable starter. But halfway through that year, something clicked. The processing, the confidence, the accuracy. Daboll had unlocked him. From that point forward, Josh Allen became a top-5 quarterback and eventually an MVP winner. That's why, if Daboll returned to Buffalo, it would immediately raise the ceiling of the Bills' offense. Not necessarily in terms of raw numbers, they're already among the league's best, but in efficiency, rhythm, and situational mastery. The areas that win playoff games. The areas where Buffalo has come up short since Daboll left. And from a Miami perspective, that's the nightmare scenario. Because as much as Dolphins fans might dream about adding Daboll to their staff, whether as an offensive consultant or even as a replacement if the organization makes big changes, the reality is simple. Buffalo would welcome him back with open arms. They know exactly how valuable he is, and they know what he did for Josh Allen's career. So here's the honest truth. This firing in New York sends a ripple across the entire AFC East. Whether Miami brings Daboll in to strengthen their own offense or Buffalo reunites with him to reignite the Allen era, the impact will be massive. And for anyone watching the division race, these next few months could shape the future of both franchises in a very big way.